Candace, we keep hearing this systemic racism, though, that it exists, that it's in play. Do you believe it is? I mean, one could certainly say during the Jim Crow era, when African Americans couldn't vote, that's systemic racism. You have things in the system that are contributing to racism. Now that we've had a black president elected twice, black Supreme Court justices, is systemic racism still a reality today?
It is not a reality. It is the opposite of a reality. It's an illusion that people are holding on to because they don't want to do hard work and they just want to be afforded all of these privileges in life without ever having to work. There was absolutely nothing that I cannot do as a Black American in this country that a white American can do. If you can point to me to the law or the practice that's in place that somehow keeps me out based on my character and how hard I work. If there's two people that are working the exact same and putting out the same, exerting the same amount of effort, and you're going to tell me that as a Black person I can't get ahead, it doesn't exist. So what they're looking for right now, these race baiters and these race hustlers, is they want more. They want extra credit, right? They want to be privileged. They want to be ahead of people. And that is what's wrong. That is where the real racism is existing. To say to someone, you need to constantly be with a Black person. I mean, how foolish is that, Raymond?
On Tuesday, Attorney General William Barr testified before Congress, and this is what Representative Richmond from right here in Louisiana had to say. Watch.
You started your testimony with eloquent words about the life and legacy of John Lewis, fighting systematic racism, voter intimidation, civil rights. The one thing that you have in common with your two predecessors, both Attorney General Sessions and Attorney General Whitaker, is that when you all came here and brought your top staff, you brought no Black people. That, sir, is systematic racism. That is exactly what John Lewis spent his life fighting. And so I would just suggest that actions speak louder than words, and you really should keep the name of the Honorable John Lewis out of the Department of Justice's mouth.
Candace, your reaction, and is there systemic or systematic, as the congressman said, racism in the United States?
I mean, it's so hard to listen to stuff like that because it's so obviously dishonest. I mean, what a bizarre thing to say that if you walk into a room and you don't walk in with a person of color, you're perpetuating some sort of systemic racism. Do the same rules apply if you walk into a room and you've got a white person, a Black person, but you're lacking an Asian person? I mean, it makes no fundamental sense to say that depending on how many colored people are in the room determines whether or not the room is racist. And this is one of the things that people keep forgetting about America. We live in a majority white country, okay? So if you were in Uganda and you walked into a room and you saw majority Black people, that would not be an example of systemic racism against white people. That would be an accurate reflection of the amount of white versus Black people that live in the country. What Black people are looking for right now, it seems, people like him who are race baiters, is to become a majority in every industry, in every room, on every sports team. And it doesn't work that way when you represent 13% of a population. This is such foolishness.
Black Lives Matter, it started, during enslavement, right? I mean, Black Lives Matter is an age-old movement that just changes names. It's been the civil rights movement. It's been run by SNCC. It's been run by the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. It's been John Lewis's movement. It's been Dr. King's movement.
Is the BLM a continuation of Dr. King's civil rights movement?
Yeah, I'm sure that Dr. King was a supporter of riot, of protesting, of burning down businesses, of killing and slaughtering Black Americans in the street. I'm sure that's really what he was a proponent of when he was standing up on stage, surrounded by white people, saying that we needed more peace. No, people in the civil rights era were actually fighting for something. They were actually fighting to put an end to racist practices. What they were really asking for was for the country to actually recognize the things that are promised and afforded to every human being under the Constitution of the United States. And we weren't getting that. We actually weren't recognizing the words of our own Constitution. And then we suddenly did. And what really happened during that period when Blacks were finally granted true freedom in the forms of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is people went, oh my goodness, now I'm suddenly responsible for myself. Now I actually have to put in the work ethic. Now I can't complain or point to a systemic injustice. And then we started seeing this whole era of white guilt, right? Of saying that, well, no matter what any Black person does, they're guiltless and they're blameless. And we can point to 400 years of slavery to say that's the reason you got a bad grade on your test. What they're really creating is a system where Black Americans are never going to try and therefore never going to get ahead. And that is where the real racism exists, in telling somebody that they're less than repeatedly so they don't even try. And that racism is being executed by and large by the left, by white liberals, and by the Democrat Party.
It's not just a Black people concern. This is the public realizing if they're coming for Black lives, they're eventually coming for yours. They're eventually coming for your security and peace.
Candace, who are they? What narrative's being created here? And who does it serve,
no idea.
ultimately?
I'm assuming they must be the police officers, because since Black Lives Matter right now, their main thing, the big piece of the puzzle is defund the police. The police officers are going to come for your life, which is just, again, extraordinarily dishonest. And it's incredible to me that these people are allowed to be on the air and allowed to keep spinning these lies. When police officers save lives, right? When the biggest threat to a Black person on the streets is another Black person, statistically speaking, and nobody wants to have that conversation because, again, this is a narrative. This is not a truth. This is a narrative that is being spun during an election cycle to create division. And so she knows she's being dishonest, and it's incredible to me that she can continue to do that with a straight face, knowing that she is bringing about harm upon the very community that she claims to be speaking on behalf of.
There's a story, Candace, it's gotten almost no media coverage. A Black Milwaukee man, Burnell Trammell, who, by the way, was a supporter of Black Lives Matter, he was fatally shot last Thursday while sitting outside of his business. Now, he's often seen wielding large handwritten signs with his personal beliefs in big letters, okay? He supported George Floyd, police reform, and President Donald Trump. Now, it's suspected that his killing may have been politically motivated. Where's the outrage over the loss of this Black life? I've heard nothing of it. We don't know his name at all. We are seeing statues coming down, monuments and streets renamed. This week, Loyola University of Maryland announced that a residence hall named in honor of Catholic writer Flannery O'Connor, the great Southern writer, would be renamed due to recent concerns about her use of racist language in private correspondence when she was a teenager in the 1940s. Now, what's most striking about this is the president of the university, a Father Linan, said this about O'Connor's writings. He said, "I'm not a scholar of Flannery O'Connor, but I've studied her fiction and nonfiction writings. Particularly in her fiction, the dignity of African-American persons and their worth is consistently upheld, with the bigots being the object of ridicule." Does it make sense to cancel one of our greatest Southern authors? I mean, I guess Tennessee Williams, Capote, Twain are next here.
Well, they are. That's already happening. It's not next. It's already happening. On college campuses. John Locke. These are all of these people, all of these authors that I grew up reading in school are being canceled. They're not learning that stuff. They're being instead replaced with postmodern artists. Postmodern writers and postmodern artists. And these are what the kids are studying. So you want to know why you have so many people that are supporting this? They're learning this actively in school. Of course, you shouldn't be canceled. Of course, every single person, especially when you go back to a time where slavery was all over the world, you're going to find people whose characters are conflicted, whose actions were conflicted. But does that take away from their work? Should we not study their work? Should we pretend history never happened? I mean, because that's what they're after. They want to pretend history never happened, that nothing good ever came during a time where there was bad. There's always going to be bad in the world. You can't pretend that every single thing that existed during bad periods somehow becomes moot and irrelevant and should be canceled. This is a dangerous way to be. And what we're talking about here really at its core are the tenets of Marxism and communism. Right? That everything is fundamentally wrong about society. Everything is backwards. The family, the church, the writers, history, everything needs to go. And because they're moving towards some false utopian society that's never going to exist. What's the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to wake up one day and you're not going to recognize the country that we live in. They're going to seize all of our rights. And I don't want to live in that society, which is why I encourage people to wake up now, because this fight and this threat that we're facing, this Marxist battle that we're in the midst of right now, is very, very real and has severe long-term implications. Because this stuff that they're so angry about, it happened everywhere in the world, right? You want to talk about slavery? Slavery happened everywhere in the world. And it wasn't an institution that was put together by white men. It was an institution that was put together by black men, by Muslim men, by black and brown people. This institution was put together. It was white men that were the first to end and abolish slavery. Britain, followed by France, followed by America, being the first countries that put an end to the abhorrent practice of slavery, right? You want to talk about people saying, go back to your African roots. Black is king. We were kings and queens in Africa. Such a fraudulent narrative as we were sold into slavery by our ancestors for things as meaningless as gin and mirrors, right? People don't know this stuff. And what happens in Africa today? There still are slaves, Raymond. There still are slaves.
Yeah.
You want to actually get impassioned and angry about something? Go deal with the live slave auctions in Libya. Go deal with the fact that in Lake Volta, in Ghana, they have something like 20,000 child slaves working, doing fishing and things for people that are being rescued. This is really a sign of our remarkable privilege and our insulation in America. These people don't know what happens outside. They don't understand how tremendously fortunate they are to be in the United States of America at this time. If you are a Black American and you are breathing in America today, you are a part of the most privileged, elite Black people and white people that have ever walked the face of the planet today. And that's the truth that they don't want to grapple with.